And let's get going. So happy, what is this? First Thursday of August, I think. Let's get into the data that we have for July. I guess the best news here is, despite all of the theoretical or potential headwinds by the situation in the Middle East and increases in fuel prices and all of that, the traffic is up both for Part 91 and 135. Part 135 actually had a better second half of July than first half, and the first half, was kind of the end of the FIFA World Cup. So it was great to see that even after that, we were seeing positive, in some cases, more positive data than we were in the first half of the month. So all good stuff on that front. When we look at this multi-year chart, you can see here kind of how we trended, and we are continuing to trend in an upward direction. When we look at year-over-year percent increase, it was north of 1% compared to last month. So all of this is just positive stuff in light of all the uncertainty out there. When we look at Part 91, and as I say, it's Part 91 and 91K for us, the way we do this reporting. We're up 6.3% for the month. That is in contrast to 5.1% year to date. So we've got a trend that is moving in a more positive direction on that front. So that's the Part 91 and 135. You can see here that we did have a dip earlier, and it's kind of been a little more up and down on the Part 91 front, just in terms of the rate. Every month this year so far, there has been an improvement over last year. It's just the rate of improvement has been up and down. And then when we look at combined traffic, we get, again, a little bit of the up and down in terms of the rates, but we're up 5.31% for the full month of July. And as I often say here, just to calibrate for those of you listening who are in the FBO space, this is really the one to watch because this is the combination of Part 91 and 135. This is sort of all BizAv traffic. Now, when we look at size classes here, we can see that the light jets are off 2.4%. That's a fairly significant dip. They were off a bit in the first half of the month, but not quite this much. So this is sort of the contra number out of everything that I've been looking at here. Light jets are just soft right now. When we look at mid-size, up 10.5%. Super mids, 18.1%. So crazy improvement there year over year. Large cabin up 8.6%. So you can see that for all the other jet size classes, the traffic is significantly positive with the exception of light jets. And that's a little bit odd because this time of year, the trip lengths tend to be shorter and tend to favor light jets. But the data doesn't lie. So looking at our major markets here is LAX. We can see traffic is off 2.2%. Van Nuys off 4.2%. So things just got soft out there in July. Teterboro, different story, up 6.3%. That is off of the 7.3% year-to-date trend. So things were a little bit softer. We are getting into a bit of if there's a soft season in New York, this is it. I mean, we're going to see it in August. A lot of people on vacation. A lot of those vacations do not involve long private jet flights this time of year. White
Hey, Greg,
planes, yes,
sorry you broke up a little bit there when you were saying, is this a soft period you were saying?
it is. I mean, just seasonally soft, right? Not it's what I'm saying is especially in the Northeast and in New York, which drives a lot of the BizAv industry. Folks go to Nantucket or they go to the Hamptons and places like that. They're not going to Aspen or Florida like they do in the colder seasons. And when I show you the top 50 origin destination pairs, you're going to notice the lack of traffic or the much lower traffic counts on the north-south corridor this time of year. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's
Got it.
not a gloom and doom thing. It's just it's that time of year kind of a thing.
Sure.
Yep. Then when we get to whoops, I go the right direction here. White Plains is up 0.4%, so it's positive territory, not as strong as Teterboro. Farmingdale, on the other hand, up 6.3%. Just keep in mind, I mean, when you see these numbers over here, much smaller numbers in terms of total traffic counts. Teterboro, if we look at this, is just off the chart in terms of the number of operations in a given day. When you're seeing 600 operations in a given day, that's just a whole different level than Farmingdale at less than 100. Then we go to Morristown, also in the less than 100 category. They're off just slightly, half a percent. Then we move to the center of the the center of the country. Midway for GA was off 7.7%. Chicago exec, Milwaukee off 3.9%, so a little softer out there. Atlanta had a 1 day spike that was around FIFA, and that sort of affected the whole month. So you're seeing this is Hartsfield up 21.2% just because we had more traffic around that game. And interestingly, there was a spike around the game for Peachtree, Cal, but the rest of the month overcame that. So, you can see here some places where the volume was softer than the prior year. So we wound up the month off 1.7%. So when we talk about FIFA's impact, it had an impact. It drove more traffic, but at a macro level, there are an awful lot of other factors that come into play. So here we are, Boston, GA off 7.7%. Boston Bedford, on the other hand, up 12.2%. And I mean, my take on that is they are really trying to discourage GA traffic into Boston. That airport has grown quite a bit on the commercial side. I think you are in a mode where you have to call for prior permission to get in there in Boston right now. So that is, I think we're seeing somewhat of a shift from Boston and Logan to Bedford. In these numbers, here is Dulles for GA. We're off 8.8%. Meanwhile, Manassas is up 4.2. So the airport doing better in the DC metro area is Manassas. Here is Charlotte. We're seeing some traffic off there a bit, off 11.4%. Then when we get into our second home cities, here is West Hampton, and we're up 2.5%. This is clearly the season. I mean, we're right at peak right now. By the time we do our next report, you're going to see that start to crest. Here's Aspen, only the GA traffic, and this airport has just struggled all year. It's sort of like people decided not to go to Aspen when there wasn't snow in the winter, and that somehow has had a halo effect and affected people going there in the summer. Just interesting to see. Here's Vail, not doing anywhere near as poorly. So it's still off a tad, but only 1.4%, not the double digits that we were seeing there for Aspen. Then we go to Denver Centennial, which we include here just because it's close to those two airports. Not really the same travel intent, right? This is the city suburban airport for Denver, off 1.9%, which is just slightly below the 1.3% year-to-date trend. And then here is Nantucket. We are peak season in Nantucket for sure, just like the Hamptons. We're about to crest. Traffic is off 8.6% in the near term there. And that's, I would say, this area right here, we had some softness, but in general, it's still a strong season for Nantucket. And we're seeing this kind of same deal for Martha's Vineyard. This looks event-like to me, and I'm not quite sure what the event was last year that drove this level of traffic that did not happen this year, but something was different in that range, and it has resulted in sort of same general trend at a lower level for this year. Napa off 6.5% over this period. So, what you'll see when we look at all this data is, yes, we're up overall, but it's not, there are winners and losers across the country when we look at it airport by airport or market by market. Here's Bandon Dunes, also off a bit, pretty much off the same percent as it's been year to date, off 7.1. Scottsdale, here's a breakout, and that's fairly significant, right? They got to the bottom of, so where the Nantuckets and Martha's Vineyards and whatever have their summer peaks, we have a summer low in Scottsdale, and we've hit the bottom of the low, and things are starting to come back. And traffic there is up 13.7% year over year. Jackson Hole, we had all of Snow Country had was struggling, or at least Denver area, Colorado was struggling, and Jackson Hole did better in the winter. Than those areas, and they're doing better again in the summer. So they're up 8.8% year over year. And we'll get to Hilton Head. Not quite sure exactly what's going on here, because they're off 26.8% year over year, which is just interesting. I'm not aware of anything that would, make Hilton Head any less attractive than in the past. Here is the Dallas market with Addison, and you can see traffic is up 5.3% there. So we've got some good solid activity. However, things aren't quite as good at Dallas Love, where things are off 0.5%. So that's down from a 2.3% increase earlier in the year. Again, could be a number of reasons for that. Then we roll over to Houston, and you can see that traffic is positive there. An awful lot of ups and downs. They have their busy days and their slow days. But 2.6% to the good compared to 3.2% year to date. And then we roll down to Florida. Here's Opelika. Opelika is up 17.2%. I can't tell you that it's because Jet Aviation moved in as an FBO, but that is one of the recent developments down there, right? They just opened or just had their grand opening on a facility there in Opelika. And it certainly is becoming more and more popular as the South Florida airport of choice. Here's Fort Lauderdale, GA, which is also doing pretty well. You can see this nice bump, up 31% from a percentage point basis. And Fort Lauderdale exec also up 16.5%. So these are airports that are in their sort of summer period. They still have a ways to go before things tend to go back up, but we're seeing quite strong traffic out of all of those, I guess, greater Miami area airports, even in the peak of summer. Here is Naples, also doing well, up 10.5%. So there are folks that are saying if it's going to be hot anywhere, we'll be here. Now, this one is due to the airport name change. I got to figure out how I want to handle this in terms of the reporting going forward, but the drop off there is because PBI changed to DJT. And so here is the DJT, right? I could kind of go off in Excel or something and merge the data, but that just doesn't happen every day that an airport code changes. And so it kind of makes our reporting a little bit tricky. So that's what those look like. And then here is Nassau in the Bahamas, where you can see things are a little softer, off 6.2% against a 1.2% positive trend. So for whatever reason, it's been slightly less popular to go to Nassau this year than last year. Now we will fast forward to our top 50 OD pairs, and that's where you can see the orange is Florida. If we look at this in the winter, there is just a ton of Florida. Teterboro to Opelika and back is still, on the top 50 list. You can also see here that we're getting, the Fort Lauderdale MYM traffic and then Nassau traffic in here, but that's about it. This is a fraction of the Florida traffic that you'll see between, January and say May, right? So that's that. And Teterboro to Dulles has sort of emerged as a very, very popular route of late. There are, back in the day, a few years ago, Van Nuys Las Vegas was always the top, and we're just seeing more variety in that right now. So I've added a few more slides here that just sort of depict where the top routes are, and you can see that Teterboro is kind of at the heart of an awful lot of the top OD pair routes. It's not a surprise with what it is in terms of the center of the charter universe. We can see here that there were 52 departures Las Vegas to Van Nuys. So that if we look over time, oops, it looks like sorry, I had included the first half of the month's chart. And this is the one we really want to look at. Top route was Teterboro to Dulles with 59 operations. Teterboro remains by far the strongest concentration of airport in the top 50. I think it is more on more of the routes than anything else by a wide margin. And then you can look at this, and you can see here that 420 departures in the top 50 back sort of prior to June as we go through. It did dip July 1st to 15th. It was down to 263, which is sort of interesting, but then rebounded quite a bit, and we're back into the 400 departure area. So, and the point out the Eagle, Raleigh Durham, and I don't recall off the top of my head, EGGW would be in the UK, but I think it's one of the London airports. Where those were highlights in terms of the routes out of Teterboro for this period. So then we get into fuel, and let's fast forward. You can see this is going back to the beginning of June. Fuel prices were coming down, kind of going back up, and now we had some of the largest increases that we've seen in a while here. Not surprising because of things flaring back up in the Middle East around the Strait of Hormuz and oil. And North Dakota took the cake with a 76 cent per gallon increase over the past period, but Michigan was up, Ohio. I mean, fuel prices are up everywhere, which I don't think is a surprise to anybody. And then this is how it looks when you look at it by state. So 869 and 870 for Colorado, and Alaska certainly stand out in terms of being super high. And then Rhode Island also $9.14. So if you looked at everything on the chart here, I believe Rhode Island takes the cake on that one. So that ends the show, the deck here. Everything I have programmed. Sometimes we get questions. I am more than happy to answer, or in some cases, we have folks ask questions of the other people on the call. Feel free to put something in the chat or unmute yourself and speak up if you have something you would like to ask me or the group. But there are other weeks where I've covered it and we're all good. I know it's deep into summer vacation season. When I sent this note out, the number of out-of-office replies was, about as high as you might think this time of year. I think this is one of the peak summer vacation weeks, for the U.S. So I guess I would say going once, going twice, if anyone would like to
Hey,
see
I'll
us.
jump in for a second.
Yeah. Sure.
Hi, Greg. It's Christine. How are you?
Oh, great. How are you?
Doing great. I thought I'd just throw in, I saw your email, which I thought was super helpful about the AI symposium. I don't know if
Yeah.
I didn't make it to the beginning of this call, but I don't know if you wanted to just kind of throw out some more information while you've got some attention here.
Sure, I would be happy to. So this AI symposium is something that is like near and dear to my heart. It came about because as a course of, what I do for a living here, I'm always out there talking to charter operators, and it became clear to me after talking to a number of them that the way AI is starting to impact things is something that people are looking for guidance and information on. A lot of folks were asking my take on it, and when that became sort of a theme, I thought it might be a good idea to bring people together and create a day and a half where we could bring in thought leaders, and there are some folks on the agenda that are guys in our industry that have done very cool things that I think people will find interesting. I've got folks with Amazon that we've been working with that have jumped in and said they're willing to share some insights, and so I want to have a really good day and a half of information, knowledge, and sort of just communication amongst folks in the industry about where we need to be thinking with AI. I want people to have an opportunity to learn a little something, especially in the workshops in the second day, that they might not have known ahead of time, as well as just getting knowledge from folks in the presentations that we're doing on the first half. That's sort of relevant stuff. I'm going to be doing a post where we talk more about the agenda. I can share a little bit on that. If anybody knows Barry Shevlin from Fly USA, he is a very tech savvy guy, and he has shared with me a number of things he's done just to get my feedback on it. One of them is some very cool lead qualification stuff that he's done in charter, and I asked if he'd be willing to share that with people just to help them see. So he's going to do that. I also what I'd like this conference to do is cover different areas, so maintenance and safety and all that. On the safety front, I reached out to some contacts at the FAA that are in charge of SMS for the FAA, and I've got two folks coming there. I was surprised to hear that they are really leaning in strong on AI with SMS at the government level. So I'm excited to have them on the agenda. And there's, several more speakers, and we are trying to be very thoughtful about folks that are really going to add value to the industry sort of thought space here. I want it to be a great, everybody comes away feeling that was a really good use of a day and a half to help understand something that's going to change everything in our lives quite a bit, and how to think about it in our lives in Air Charter.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, sure thing. Looking forward to seeing you there.
Likewise.
All right. Well, with that, everybody, that we can round out another version of this call. I'll do another one in 2 weeks where we'll be halfway into the month of August, and we'll see how that's going. Like I said, we're going to see some seasonal softness that's normal, but overall, I am really encouraged by how resilient the market has been in spite of these fuel increases. It's good to see that some really kind of crazy high fuel is not impacting demand, at least not yet. And I hope, I'm knocking on wood here just because there will be a point where it might start to impact it. I'm glad that we aren't seeing it right now.
Yeah, I just have one quick question. How do you get your sample size? Where do you get the data from?
So my core source for this is direct from the FAA. There's a data set or it's actually a number of different data feeds that are called SWIM, for System-Wide Information Management. And I've been subscribing to them for a long, long time. That's US domestic data. I also now get a sort of synthesized feed from the folks at AirNav that includes some international data. I'm likely to kind of shift things at some point here this fall to include that data set. It's slightly different than the data we get direct from the FAA. And so I just want to make sure that there isn't that I sort of understand exactly, where the changes are specifically before I make that jump. But I think it'd be helpful. I would like to be also sharing some insights internationally as opposed to US. So the SWIM data is going to be 100% US, and the AirNav data is going to have some international stuff in it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Happy to keep going. If anybody has any other questions, by all means, bring them on. Okay. Well, then with that, again, hope to see you all on the next call, and enjoy August.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.